This is part 3 of a series that will go over all of the different Stormtrooper types and variants. If you missed parts 1 and 2, links to them will be in the description of this video. First are the Shadow Stormtroopers, also known as Shadow Troopers or Black Hole Stormtroopers. They wore all black Stormtrooper armor that gave them great protection against blasters, and they carried cloaking devices that rendered them invisible for a short period of time. Shadow Stormtroopers were specially trained in infiltration and ambush tactics, and were often assigned to extremely classified missions. Second are the Shadow Troopers, not to be confused with the Shadow Stormtroopers seen previously. These Shadow Troopers were Stormtrooper Dark Jedi hybrid soldiers. They were armed with lightsabers powered by synthetic Sith crystals. They wore armor made out of cortosis, a mineral that resisted lightsabers. This armor also had limited stealth capabilities. Shadow Troopers possessed some Force abilities, like Force Grip and Force Lightning. Third are the Phase Zero Dark Troopers. These soldiers were aged veteran clones from the Clone Wars, who had their limbs and organs removed and replaced with cybernetics. Many troopers could not cope with the state of being more machine than man, and attempted suicide. Dark Troopers wore a jump pack and typically carried a blaster cannon or ARC caster. Fourth are the Phase 1 Dark Troopers, which were Imperial droids. These droids were little more than a skeletal frame equipped with a vibro sword attached to their right arm and a blast shield on their left. They possessed basic artificial intelligence. Though rarely used in combat, they were mainly used as guards for Imperial installations. Fifth are the Phase 2 Dark Troopers, which were an upgraded version of the Phase 1 Dark Troopers. These droids were equipped with a jump pack and an assault cannon. They were heavily armored and were also capable of being loaded into hyperspace pods for transportation. They could also be used as an exoskeleton for regular soldiers as well. Sixth are the Phase 3 Dark Troopers, which were the last and most powerful Dark Trooper droids. These Dark Troopers were intended to later be made into exoskeletons and become the new armor for the next generation of Stormtroopers. These exoskeletons were supposed to give its wearer increased firepower, strength, and durability. They were armed with a large handheld assault cannon and 2 shoulder-mounted Seeker missile launcher racks that were hidden under the suit's shoulder plates when not in use. They wore extremely powerful armor that was nearly indestructible, even against lightsabers. Seventh are going to be the Dark Trooper class variants. They are very similar and really only differ by name and how they look. These will include the Glory class Dark Troopers, Triumphant class Dark Troopers, Exogen class Dark Troopers, Victory class Dark Troopers, Oppressor 7 class Dark Troopers, Oppressor 9 class Dark Troopers, Black Hole Dark Troopers, Urban Assault Dark Troopers, and Inquisitorium Dark Troopers. They were primarily used as city guards and relied on a wide variety of weapons, like the E11 blaster and the EE3 carbine rifles, and DXR-6 heavy carbines. They were typically droids, with a few of them being cyborgs. They were heavily armored. The Glory class Dark Troopers were one of the most feared troopers by the rebels, and the Inquisitorium Dark Troopers primarily worked with the Inquisitors branch. Eighth are the Dark Troopers, not to be confused with the Phase 0 through 3 Dark Troopers, or the class variant Dark Troopers seen previously. These Dark Troopers were specially trained Stormtroopers empowered with the dark side of the Force. They wore black armor, and not much else is known about them. Ninth are the Night Hunters. They were personally trained by Sith Lords and learned to defend themselves against Jedi Force powers. They were able to block lightsaber attacks, negate the effects of Force powers, and counter the extreme athleticism of Jedi. Night Hunters were usually sent to kill or capture Jedi. 10th are the Nova Troopers. Nova Troopers were Stormtrooper honor guards. They wore distinctive black and gold reinforced Stormtrooper armor. They were assigned to either historically significant locations, such as the Sith burial grounds, or to guard captured enemy starships. They were also used as commandos in special missions, such as infiltrating enemy bases. 11th are the Dark Nova Troopers. They were droids and were programmed with expertise in boarding operations against enemy ships, and as such were commonly used to board Rebel Alliance corvettes. They were heavily armored and were armed with heavily modified DC-15A blaster rifles. 12th are the Purge Troopers. They wore a heavy suit of armor similar to that of the Phase 2 Dark Troopers. They were used to enforce the Empire's rule in the Anote sector on behalf of Governor Adelhard. Another version of the Purge Troopers was an early design of the Imperial Dark Trooper project. They were meant to be used against Force sensitives. Their primary weapon was an energy blade extending from their left forearm, along with a shield to block attacks. They also possessed a missile launcher on their right shoulder. They wore armor that was made out of duranium and cortosis, which gave them great protection against lightsabers. 13th are the Terror Troopers. The Terror Troopers were created as cyborg experiments. Their masks were designed to invoke the appearance of General Grievous from the Clone Wars. They possessed a stun blaster and a cloaking ability. They had extremely fast reflexes, which allowed them to dodge most melee attacks. Terror Troopers were usually sent into hostile environments in order to quickly dispose of targets without leaving a trace. 14th are the Shadow Evo Troopers. They wore an experimental armor which mixed the elements from both the Evo Trooper armor and the Shadow Trooper armor. This allowed them to operate in the most hazardous environments, while also having the ability to turn invisible. Although they were rarely used, they were usually sent on operations on worlds which involved menacing the local inhabitants and assassinating resistance leaders. Last for part 3 are the Hazard Stormtroopers, also known as Hazard Troopers. They wore a very heavy suit of body armor that offered complete immunity to temperature extremes, immunity to acidic damage, as well as invulnerability to small firearms. The armor was also a functioning spacesuit, which could keep the wearer alive in a vacuum or underwater environment for up to 3 days. Their armor had limited protection to lightsabers as well. Hazard Stormtroopers, like Phase 0 Dark Troopers, were cyborgs. They were usually equipped with either an Imperial Heavy Repeater or a Stuker concussion rifle. Thanks for watching part 3 of this series. We will continue to go over the other Stormtrooper types in part 4. A link to watch will be added to the description of this video once it's posted. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, may the Force be with you.